All right, welcome to our next campfire chat, this time with Susan Robertson. Susan, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Heather?
I am great. We met. Well, I don't even remember when that was, but when we met, we there was just this instant connection, and I don't know if it was the red hair or what, but it's been so nice getting to know you because you just inspire me in so many ways.
Oh, thank you.
So I know you, but others don't. So just if you'll share who you are, what you do, where you live, background, all the things.
Okay. So, who am I? Susan Robertson. I live in Orlando, Florida. I'm not a native of Florida, but I've been here for nearly 20 years, so I think I'm pretty close to a native. And my work is about innovation and creative thinking. So I help people think more creatively to come to breakthrough solutions. And I do a lot of, with that, I do individual work, but I also do a lot of corporate work, coaching and consulting. And from a personal standpoint, I'm a serious ballroom dancer, although I'm not a competitive ballroom dancer. I'm a social dancer, but I'm a fairly serious one. And I have two little dogs named Roscoe and Edith. And I like to kayak. How's that? All the things in less than 2 minutes.
I love it. So how do you become like a creativity and innovation expert? How does that happen?
Well, interestingly, it's a lot of sort of stumbling moves that all turned out well, I guess. So if you go way back, I have an MBA in marketing, and I started my career in marketing and brand management in big consumer packaged goods companies. So I worked at Quaker Oats, I worked on the Gatorade brand, I worked on Fruit of the Loom, I worked on lots of stuff you've heard of as a marketing manager and a brand manager. And I discovered over time that what I really enjoyed and what I was really good at was the new product development aspect of that. So I typically found myself in the innovation work part of it. And then I discovered after many uh, many rounds of finding a new job and finding a new job and finding a new job, I discovered that what I kept doing was putting myself into a new job that put me back in the beginning of the innovation process again. Because what I
Ah,
discovered as I went through it, I liked it at the beginning, and then when it moved into sort of a more of a maintenance phase, I
mhm.
started to not like it. And it took me a while to realize that was the cycle that I was in. But once
Yeah.
I finally realized it, I decided I needed to leave the corporate world and get myself into a job where I could stay in that front end where all the innovation and the creativity happens. I like that space of ambiguity, which a lot of people don't, but I do.
Hmm.
So I worked for a consulting company for a long time who consulted to clients like my previous job. So we did a lot of new product development work. But within that, I also learned how to train people in creative thinking and then discovered that that was really my passion. So then I left my consulting company. I've been doing this on my own now for about 5 years. And I think I've really found my niche.
I love it. You know, I one of my mastermind members asked me, she was like, can you teach me to be more creative? And I was like, I can't. Like, I don't know how to do that. But there are people who can. I was like, Susan. I'm like, I don't know how to teach that. So I love it. I love it. I'm so excited. In fact, well, normally I put this at the end, but we'll just share it now. Give everyone just a little bit of a taste of what you're going to be doing at summer camp.
So we are going to be learning a very specific tool or technique, I guess, that does help you think more creatively. And it's specifically designed to help you get through this is going to get a little bit complicated, but we all have some cognitive biases, and cognitive biases are mental shortcuts that we use for problem solving and decision making. And these are mental shortcuts that we all share. So it's not like mine is individual and yours is individual. We all have the same cognitive biases. And this particular tool that we're going to be learning helps us break through a particular cognitive bias that really gets in our way
Mhm.
in creative thinking. It's what makes us tend to say yes, but in response to new ideas. So we'll learn what that is, what that bias is, and why it's a problem, and then we'll learn a tool to help us get around it.
I love it. Become more yes and people.
Exactly.
Awesome. So tell me, because I came from the corporate background as well, And I just, it was so stuffy. And so I'm curious because you were one of the most authentic people I know. Like, I mean, I love, right? Like you've got I don't even know, what do we call that? Is it like
This
glitter in the hair,
called fairy hair.
you wear outfits that like just totally embrace who you are and how you feel. Were you like that in the corporate world as well, or did that evolve over time?
I tried to be like that in the corporate world. It was
Yeah.
somewhat problematic. So in some corporations I worked for, it was okay. In other corporations I worked for, it was sort of not okay, and I was clearly the odd man out.
Yep.
I think it depends on the culture of the organization. Like I worked at Hasbro Toys for a while, and that was fine there.
Yeah.
In fact,
Yeah.
I wasn't one of the most creative ones there because the toy designers were really creative.
Yeah.
But then, when I was at Quaker Oats, for example, a much more conservative company, I was a little bit the oddball.
Yeah. So part of summer camp, the whole concept is, if you're going to be a leader right now, a visionary, a business owner, anything. I mean, 2020 is the year, like if there was ever a year to be creative and innovative, like we're in it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just such an important tool. And it's part of just the spirit of summer camp itself is learning to be more playful, learning to not be so stuffy and guarded all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that when we feel as though we have to show up in a certain way, it's hard to be innovative and creative.
It very much is. And in fact, back to your point about being more playful, there's a lot of research and experience that proves that being playful does make you more creative. Like the two are very, very linked. And in fact, if you want to link to an article about it, I have an article about it. But also, if you've ever seen Sir Kenneth Robinson's TED Talk about creativity and education, fantastic TED Talk. I highly recommend it. But one of the points he makes is that all children start out creative. Like every child is creative. Every child draws and paints and sings, and we grow out of it. Meaning we train ourselves out of it as we go into school and into jobs, and we start to learn there are consequences to being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We start to try very hard to never be wrong. And if you're never willing to be wrong, you're never going to try anything very new. So that's actually a little bit wrapped up in what we're going to do in my session in summer camp. But that fear of wrong is a huge creativity blocker. And so letting go of that and willing to be playful, willing to be exploratory, and willing to let go of some of your preconceived notions about how to be in the world of work really will make you much more creative.
Well, my hope is that people, even if they don't feel comfortable, my hope is that people will come into summer camp and be willing to play a little bit, because it's going to be a very safe environment. And it's, if you're not willing to play there, you're not going to be willing to play at your work, right? Or other places. So how do we tap back into that just childlike wonder and give ourselves the permission to try new things? My personal approach to summer camp, and I've told my team this, if we nail everything, it means we weren't playing big enough. We weren't trying enough new things. And so our goal is honestly for some things to maybe not work out, because otherwise, how will you know, right? Like what's good and what's not? We're in a new world. You've got to be open to doing some things wrong.
Exactly. Got to make some mistakes, because if you never make any mistakes, you didn't try anything very new.
Yeah. So when you're working with executives and corporate people, which I mean, I guess is probably kind of getting into what you're going to talk about. But do you ever get those who just like they refuse, like they say they want to be creative and innovative, but they refuse to actually do the stuff that's going to get them there?
Yes, occasionally. It's fairly rare, but it's not unheard of. And I think for those people, they are just unable to let go of, I guess, logic, for lack of a better word. And I don't want to imply that creativity isn't ultimately logical and fact-based, because it is. I mean, creativity is not about ignoring facts. It's not about ignoring reality at all. That's a huge part of, coming up with a creative solution that actually works in the real world is important. But to get there, you do have to let go of some constraints that you probably have created in your own head.
Yeah.
And there are occasionally people who are unwilling to let go of those constraints, and they just assume that being creative means being childish as opposed to childlike.
Yeah.
Which are two different things, but I think they maybe don't separate them.
Yeah. Well, what are some childlike things you've been doing maybe during COVID? I mean, has things changed for you while you've been at home? I mean, I get Florida's open a little bit more than others, but what does that look like for you?
Well, Florida right now is more open than many places, although I personally am still not completely back to the way things were before.
Yeah.
But I've always, well, not always, but for many, many years now, I've worked from home. So that part didn't change for me.
Yeah.
Except for in the past, when I was working with my clients, I was typically physically with them. So that has changed. So doing a lot of this, as we all are, and learning how to, so the creative process particularly in a work environment is often done in groups. And it is in some ways more obvious how to do it when you're physically together, I think. So figuring out how to train people to do this when they're not physically together was a bit of that was learning for me. It was a stretch and it was good. And I was very fortunate that I had a client that I was right in the middle of it in a fairly intense training program. So we had already trained them quite a lot in just creative thinking broadly in general. But then the next phase, what I was in the middle of, was training a smaller group of them to be able to facilitate creative thinking sessions. So creative facilitators, and I had never tried to train them online before. So it was a steep learning curve, but it was fun and it worked and they're happy. And in some ways it forced us onto an accelerated timeline, I think. And I think we've accelerated. They ran into the typical issues and challenges and blockades sooner than I think they would have if we'd done it live on our original schedule. So while it felt a little stressful and challenging for all of us, including them at the beginning, I think in the end, in hindsight, there have been a lot of benefits to all of us, including my own learning about how to accelerate learning online.
Yes. So many learning opportunities this year. And I know I think we're about out of time, but I also saw you've been arranging flowers. I've loved seeing all of your Facebook posts. They're the most gorgeous arrangements.
Thank you. One of my friends I had posted a whole bunch of flower arrangements, and one of my friends said, "I'd love to live where you live." And somebody said, "Or die there, because it looks like a funeral home." Because I had so many arrangements everywhere.
Well, it's been fun to watch. So you're always inspiring. Thank you so much for coming to summer camp. And for everyone watching, be sure to come and join us. Susan's workshop is going to be amazing, and the entire spirit is going to be creativity and innovation. So come join us, heatherjoyhubbard.com/summer camp. Susan, thank you so much. And I will see you next week.
Can't wait.
All right.
See you then.